he talked about Angel Reese. He talked about Cardoso, who I think is going to be a star in the WNBA.
Something just happened in the WNBA that no one saw coming. 21,000 tickets, gone in under a minute. Not for an NBA Finals game, not for a Taylor Swift concert, but for a regular season WNBA matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. The demand was so overwhelming that the Sky had to move the game to the massive United Center, and even then, every seat was claimed in an instant. But instead of this being a moment of pure celebration, it has sparked a massive debate. Was this Caitlin Clark's star power single-handedly selling out the arena, or should Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky be getting more credit? Some fans are convinced that Reese played a major role in the ticket frenzy, while others argue that Clark is the real reason for the record-breaking demand. The debate is getting heated, and the rivalry between Clark and Reese is only fueling the fire. But when you look at the numbers, the truth is impossible to ignore. Is Caitlin Clark truly changing the WNBA on her own? And what does this mean for Angel Reese's place in the league's future? This controversy is bigger than just one game. It's a defining moment for women's basketball. The moment the tickets went on sale, chaos erupted. In less than a minute, over 21,000 seats vanished, completely sold out. Fans scrambled to secure a spot. Websites crashed under the overwhelming demand, and just like that, a regular season WNBA game had done something unheard of. The Chicago Sky's matchup against the Indiana Fever wasn't just another game anymore. It was a must-see event. What made this moment even more shocking was the fact that the Sky had to move the game to a bigger arena just to accommodate the demand. Their usual home, Wintrust Arena, which holds about 10,000 seats, wasn't even close to being enough. So they made the decision to play at the legendary United Center, the same arena where Michael Jordan made history with the Bulls. And yet, even with twice the capacity, tickets still disappeared in seconds. But instead of this being a moment of pure celebration for the WNBA, it quickly became one of the biggest debates in women's basketball history. The question wasn't about the sellout itself. It was about who was responsible for it. Was this all because of Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation whose arrival in the WNBA has completely changed the game? Or should Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky be getting just as much credit? Reese's supporters wasted no time making their case. They pointed out that she had been a major force in growing women's basketball, helping fuel rivalries and bringing attention to the game in ways that very few players ever had. She had built a massive fan base. Her personality and confidence had made her one of the most talked-about athletes in the sport, and her presence in Chicago alone was enough to turn heads. To them, this wasn't just about Clark. This was about Reese being a star in her own right. But the numbers told a different story. The Chicago Sky had never seen demand like this before. Even when Reese was announced as a key part of the team, there had been no sellouts this massive, no sudden need to move games to bigger arenas, no record-breaking ticket sales like this. It wasn't until Clark was confirmed to be playing that things went through the roof. And that's where the real controversy began. Some fans argued that this moment was undeniable proof that Clark was single-handedly driving the WNBA's popularity. The way ticket sales skyrocketed whenever she was involved, the way her games pulled in higher viewership than any women's basketball event in history, and the way entire cities were shifting their schedules to make room for her. It all pointed to the same conclusion. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another WNBA rookie. She was a phenomenon. For Angel Reese, this was a frustrating reality to face. She had spent years proving herself, showing that she wasn't just a great player, but also a true personality of the game. She had taken the WNBA's growing spotlight and made sure she was part of the conversation. But no matter what she did, Clark's rise was something different. It wasn't just about basketball. It was about marketability, media narratives, and the way certain athletes are positioned as the faces of an entire movement. Reese's frustrations weren't entirely without merit. There was no doubt that she had played a huge role in bringing attention to women's basketball, and yet she was now watching as someone else took center stage. The media coverage was shifting, the headlines were all about Clark, and despite Reese's own contributions to the game, it was clear that Caitlin Clark was the one breaking records. The reaction
since winning the WNBA championship in 2021. Let's go through some of the names that have left.
Were immediate. Some WNBA veterans and analysts pointed out that Clark's arrival was unlike anything they had seen before. Even legends of the game admitted that she was bringing in new fans at an unprecedented level, making people care about women's basketball in a way that hadn't happened before. But others weren't so quick to accept that Clark alone deserved all the credit. They believed that the rise of the WNBA was bigger than just one player, that Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, and others had laid the foundation for this moment, and that focusing everything on Clark was ignoring the bigger picture. One thing was undeniable, though: the WNBA was entering a new era and Caitlin Clark was at the center of it. Whether it was fair or not, whether other players deserved just as much attention or not, the fact remained that her presence was shifting the way the league operated. And that led to another major concern. What would this mean for the rest of the league? Would the WNBA start prioritizing Clark in marketing and putting most of its attention on her, leaving other players to fight for visibility? Would Angel Reese and other stars have to play second fiddle to Clark's rise? Or would this newfound spotlight lift everyone up, bringing more exposure, bigger paydays, and a brighter future for all WNBA athletes? Angel Reese wasn't about to let this moment pass without making her presence felt. She had built her brand on being bold, confident, and unapologetic, and she wasn't going to sit quietly while the conversation revolved entirely around Caitlin Clark. Whether through subtle social media comments, interviews, or on-court performances, she was going to make sure people didn't forget about her role in all of this. But at the end of the day, the numbers spoke for themselves. When Clark played, ratings skyrocketed. When Clark's name was attached to a game, tickets disappeared in minutes. When Clark stepped onto the court, people watched, stadiums filled, and the sports world paid attention. The rivalry between Clark and Reese had already been building since their college days, and now, it was becoming even more intense at the professional level. This wasn't just about two great players facing off. This was about who would define the next era of women's basketball. And the scary part? This was only the beginning. If Caitlin Clark could have this level of impact before even playing a full WNBA season, what would happen when she started dominating on the court? If her ticket sales were already breaking records, what would the numbers look like a year from now, 2 years from now? Would Angel Reese and others be able to keep up? Or would the WNBA become completely centered around Clark's growing superstardom? The league was at a crossroads, and the choices being made now, how players are marketed, how media coverage is distributed, and how the league builds its stars, would shape the future of the WNBA for years to come. Some see this as an exciting moment, proof that women's basketball is finally breaking into the mainstream, reaching new levels of popularity and financial success. Others see it as a warning sign, proof that certain players will always receive more opportunities than others, no matter how talented they are. No matter which side of the debate you fall on, one thing is clear: Caitlin Clark is changing everything. But will Angel Reese allow herself to be left behind? Or is this rivalry just getting started? One thing is certain: this conversation isn't over. Not even close. The debate over Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA versus Angel Reese's role in growing the game has sparked one of the most heated conversations in sports. It's no longer just about a single sold-out game. It's about what this moment represents for the future of women's basketball, media coverage, and how star power is defined. Whether fans want to admit it or not, Clark is bringing an unprecedented level of attention to the WNBA, and the numbers don't lie. The instant sellout of the Chicago Sky vs. Indiana Fever game was not normal for the WNBA. For years, the league has struggled with ticket sales, attendance, and visibility. Even with great players like Aya Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Candace Parker, the WNBA has never had a single player capable of causing this kind of ticket frenzy. The fact that one rookie could create this much demand, enough for an entire arena to sell out in under a minute, says everything about where the league is heading. But the conversation doesn't end with Clark's popularity. The bigger question is, what does this mean for other WNBA players? Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, and others have worked hard to bring attention to the league, yet all the headlines, marketing, and national conversations seem to revolve around Clark. Is this fair? Or is it just the reality of how sports work? For Angel Reese, this situation is complicated. She has spent years building her own brand, proving that she's more than just a basketball player. She's an icon in the making. She has captured the attention of fans, stirred debates, and helped fuel one of the most intense rivalries in women's basketball history. But now it feels like all the attention is shifting to Clark, and for someone as competitive as Reese, that can't be easy to accept. There's no denying that Reese has a massive following of her own. She's been a major force in growing the game, bringing drama, personality, and a level of competitiveness that keeps fans engaged. But the uncomfortable truth is that Clark's impact is currently overshadowing everything else. This is not about skill alone. It's about the way Clark has captured the public's imagination, how she's drawing in new fans, and how she has become the face of a movement. That raises another major issue. How will the WNBA handle this new reality? Will the league double down on marketing Clark, making her the clear face of the sport? Will Angel Reese and other top players feel pushed aside, leading to frustration among players who feel like they're being overlooked? Or will this newfound popularity lift everyone up, creating more opportunities, more sponsorships, and higher salaries for all WNBA athletes? It's a delicate situation. If the WNBA leans too heavily into Clark's stardom, it risks alienating other top-tier players who have also worked hard to get the league to this point. But if the WNBA doesn't capitalize on Clark's rising influence, it could be a missed opportunity to take the league to an entirely new level. And then there's the media factor. Clark's rise has been fueled not just by her skill, but by the way the media has embraced her story. She's seen as a generational talent, someone who has the ability to do for women's basketball what Michael Jordan did for the NBA or what Serena Williams did for tennis. That level of coverage doesn't happen by accident. It's a sign that networks, sponsors, and executives see her as the key to making the WNBA more mainstream. For some, that's exciting. It means bigger contracts, more TV deals, and a growing audience that could transform women's basketball forever. But for others, it raises serious concerns about fairness and opportunity. If Clark is being positioned as the face of the WNBA, what happens to players like Reese, Wilson, and others who have already proven themselves at the professional level? Do they get pushed into the background despite their talent, personality, and contributions to the league? This situation mirrors what has happened in other sports before. When LeBron James entered the NBA, he immediately became the most talked-about player in the league, even though veterans like Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan had already been dominating for years. The same thing happened when Patrick Mahomes took over the NFL. It can choose to embrace the Clark versus Reese rivalry, turning it into a marketing goldmine that benefits everyone. Or it can risk focusing too much on one player, leaving others frustrated and feeling left behind. Either way, the league has never been this relevant before, and this conversation is proof that women's basketball has finally reached a turning point. So now the question is, who will rise to the occasion? Will Angel Reese find a way to match Clark's star power, or will Caitlin Clark's influence continue to dominate everything in sight? One thing is for sure, this debate isn't ending anytime soon.